Hi, welcome to a new episode in the Internet Surfer, hosting the most horror and creepiest stories from Reddit. Please don't forget to comment, like, share, and subscribe. Enjoy.
I think I'm in a town that doesn't exist. A long horror story from Reddit Nosleep. I need urgent help. I think I am in a town that doesn't exist. I will do my best to explain with clarity. My name is Roger, I'm a police officer. I was recently restationed to a small farming town. I thought since it would probably be less eventful than the city, I would have had more time to pursue things I neglected for the majority of my life. However, that's not what happened. Upon my arrival at the station, everything was fine. Meeting my new colleagues, I learned almost everyone came from out of town like me. It was nice to know everyone could relate to me. The first day was uneventful, so to cure my boredom I made the mistake of reading some old case files. I thought I was reading an elaborate prank called Describing Impossible Problems, Monsters, and Flying Spines. I thought they were not cross-checked, so some officers decided to practice their writing skills. But the details were meticulous, vast with real and signed resident accounts. I sent a complaint to the station's higher-ups. The station's higher-ups were confused at my complaint, and gave a speech about how they ensure standards are kept high in the station. Speaking to my new colleagues, I received similar reactions, as if I were explaining to them how it's weird that it's dark during the nighttime. I didn't know what to think at first. I thought maybe since I'm the new guy the station was just messing with me. However, I saw it with my very own eyes. My next-door neighbor and his house vanished within about 5 hours. It was replaced with a patch of grass dominated by a colossal tree. A whole 2-story house disappeared in just 5 hours, replaced by old oak a few decades old. Talking to my other neighbors about it filled me with extensive paranoia. I never thought a confused look would fill me with dread. I like to consider myself intelligent, so I rather quickly realized something is wrong with the place. I collected all the evidence I could to send to my old station, including some interviews I did with some of the officers who had weirder calls. I wanted to get their unprofessional retelling of events, their off-the-record point of view. I sent off the first few to my old station with no response coming back. In fact, nobody from the outside responded. I tried calling everyone from friends, family, and even old colleagues. It seemed I had access to the outside world, but the outside world didn't have access to me. Honestly, I began to question my own sanity. I mean, there are signs, outburst of emotion, foggy memory, and hallucinations. I think that's the best way to describe them. Oh, which reminded me, I don't seem to recollect how I got into the town. I got here, but if I drove here or flew I don't remember. On top of that, a quick Google search showed me the place I'm in doesn't exist. Satellite images show just a thick forest directly where I stand. Standing directly next to my new little house, on the phone I only see trees. I'm unsure what my next move should be. So, I decided to post this here. Hopefully, someone will read the first interview and tell me that this is not normal. I need confirmation that I'm not losing my mind. I transcribed the interview below. August 9, 2024, 1:34 p.m. Row Oak Police Station. Interviewee, Jack Murrow. And the recorder is on. How are you feeling, Jack? J. Good, how can I not be? I'm getting paid to do my favorite thing. Talking. Alright, as you know, I found out that some of the records were, let's say, poorly kept. So, I'm going to ask a few questions about one of your calls just to fill in the missing details. J. No problem. Tell me about the call you had a few days ago at midnight, the one in Maggie's. J. Just some kids broke into the store, I guess, played some tricks on me too. Really, that one had missing details. It was pretty uneventful, not like there were many details in the first place. Yes, that one, just talk to me. Step by step what happened that night. Alright big boss. I think it was just about 5 minutes past midnight. I was cruising down the main road on my unexpected night shift. I wasn't supposed to be there that night. Anthony called in sick the day before. Ruined my Friday plans. I sadly don't get paid to complain, so I did my job. I remember it was rather cold that night. The breeze snuck into the cruiser at some points, revealing my breath. I didn't shut the windows completely, as the echo of the outside wind brushing against the thick tree leaned brought comfort in the darkness. So did the quiet talk host blabbering on the radio about some new internet trend. The combination of those kept me awake for the midnight shift. The midnight shift is more of a formality than a need. I was on it a few times before and nothing ever happened apart from occasional checkups on my walkie-talkie. After dark all businesses shut, the streets become filled with emptiness and the roads occasional plastic bags dragged by the wind. Safe to say, when my walkie-talkie told me there is a potential robbery in Maggie's, my pupils grew. It took me less than a minute to arrive at the scene, empty streets, and all. The owner was outside eagerly awaiting my arrival. He rushed towards me before I even had the chance to take a step outside of my cruiser. I finally caught them. His words gripped at my collar and snatched me closer as he shouted his achievements to me. Slow down, sir. What is going on? What do you mean you can dash? Every single night clothes began disappearing and mannequins were placed in random corners of the shop. 2 days ago, I even found the back door wide open. You didn't take me seriously, so I took matters into my own hands. And I caught them. The owner spoke fast in an aggressive farmer's manner, as if I were the nuisance and not the apparent burglar in the shop. I remember a few days ago some of the boys did visit Maggie's on multiple occasions, yet as suggested they didn't find anything of note. Apart from the fact that the money kept in the backroom safe was never touched. Please sir, listen to me. Slow down. Tell me what do you mean you took the matters into your own hands? Alright, I bought motion sensors and upgraded my doors. The sensors went off a few minutes ago and the shutters dropped. The owner responded. His slowed-down tone gave me the time to finally get a good look at him. He was an older gentleman with a thick whitened beard and a protruding bald spot. He certainly didn't look like the owner of a clothes shop. His jacket and jeans were rugged, worn out. I'm guessing he ran the finances while his wife did the clothing part. So, this burglar is still inside? I asked while peeking behind his shoulder onto Maggie's. It was a brick rectangle with metal shutters protecting the front door. A giant sign above the shutters glowed and sparkled in my car's headlights. It read, Maggie's, clothes fit for all the seasons. Oh, they are, and I want you to arrest them and tell them to leave my mannequins alone. His saliva polished my boot. I reached over to my walkie-talkie and lined out the situation. While the owner was preparing to open the shutter doors, I got the grim news that no backup would be coming. I doubted that the burglar would be armed or dangerous due to their recent nonviolent history. However, the fear of an altercation was still eating at me. My flashlight failed to reach the back of the store, slowly cutting off at the midpoint right at the rotating clothing racks. I couldn't see any movement in the gloom, a good yet bad sign. Hello. This is the police. We surrounded the building. Make it easy for us and come out slowly with your hands up. I heard my own routine spoken right back to me. I was quite startled even though I knew it was just an echo. I'm afraid. Afraid that the light switch is in the storeroom right at the back of the store. We can enter it through the back door. With no hesitation I shut the front door and marched onward towards the back entrance. The owner fiddled with his mass of keys until one eventually got fit. Take a few steps back, sir. I gently slid my arm onto the owner's shoulder and pushed him away from the door. I grasped the metallic handle, slowly turning the knob while trying to control my racing heartbeat. I felt my wrist tense as the door refused to pop open even though I turned the knob a solid 85 degrees. After a deep breath and a quick snap, the back door was open. My flashlight lit the concrete gray staff room. Compared to the actual store, it featured no aesthetics nor color. It was just a formality. A quick glimpse showed that the door leading to the store was closed, but I still had to check if he wasn't there instead. Each step created a loud thud that echoed throughout the room. My flashlight following my panning head showed the room was empty. The room was rather small, only featuring an old sofa, table with a dusty computer, fuse box and bunch of clothing racks doing their best to hide the blandness of the walls. "Nobody's here, come in." The owner in an instant rushed towards the fuse box. While mumbling to himself, he flicked some switches until the staff room exploded with a bright light. The sound of multiple lights springing to life and the corresponding buzz filled the orchestra. "There we go, let me get the computer, I've got some cameras we can look at." The owner rushed to the bright monitor while I reached over to my walkie-talkie to report. The staff walls were full of framed pictures, some showing the Maggie family while others the black and white beginning of the family-run business. Upon closer inspection, I noticed some photos featuring a young girl. I never saw her in the shop nor near the owners, but she was in most of the photos. She would either hug the owner's hip or walk around the shop browsing clothes while giggling to herself. A portrait of her with a golden frame had a cross sitting right above it. "This little one," the owner grits his teeth in frustration. "I almost forgot he was in the room to begin with." I ran over to him to see what's happening, and that's when I saw the CCTV. Saw exactly what was behind the walls on my right. Saw exactly what the burglar prepared for us. The shop was filled to the brim with clothes. Walls had a nice oak look to them and the floors were white as kitchen tiles. However, the burglar was nowhere to be seen. The only things we saw were the mannequins. They were not in their usual place. They were all around the shop, some holding clothes while others simply browsing the clothing racks. The clothes they wore did not match, some wore socks as gloves and other shirts as scarves. All around the shop they were put in places to mimic customers shopping. Some even mimicked staff, one on the till and the other sweeping the floor. The longer I looked, the more details I noticed. Some mannequins even appeared to act like children, on their knees holding hands or being lifted by another. They cling to their chosen parent. I thought maybe the burglar wasn't alone. To set up this many mannequins and their wardrobes would have taken hours. But there was no burglar, at least on the CCTV. I considered the chance of him hiding between the clothing racks or inside a fort made from a pile of clothes. The problem was the cameras had no blind spots. You could see every inch on the pixelated monitor. The longer I stared at that screen, the less they resembled mannequins. Panic caused me to be irrational. I decided to search for him myself. I rushed over to the door mumbling, convincing myself that it was just some kids. Unarmed, not dangerous kids. "What are you doing?" The owner jumped out of his seat, landing in almost a sprint position. "I'll find him, I don't want to stay here all night. If you see him on the camera, shout." A sturdy push was all it took to enter a bigger space, with much less room. On the CCTV this place looked spacious, in person it felt crowded. Air was replaced with the stench of leather and cloth, while the whole shop was filled with unconventional shoppers. Getting closer to the nearest mannequin filled me with a weird feeling. I felt that if I continued I would bump into a person, a certain aura that was pushing me away from them. But at the same time, no matter how many steps back I took, that feeling followed. It held a wet broomstick, slightly hunched over it swept the floor. It wore a backwards Nike cap with a winter jacket tied around its waist like a belt or improvised dress. There were a lot of mannequins in the store. On second thought, an unreasonable amount. There were more mannequins than mannequin stands. Not enough space in the store or staff room. They covered each aisle, corner, and wall. Traversing through the thick plastic jungle was difficult. It only made the feeling grow. Especially around tight turns, fully turning to my side, I did my best not to touch any of them. The closer I was, the more my lungs begged for air and skin for sweat. It felt like they were strategically placed to hinder my movements, almost perfectly replicating a busy day. I walked in circles, checked every hiding spot. Nobody was here. Except for the mannequins, of course. I stopped and sighed in a sign of defeat. I was ready to call it quits. Ready to tell the owner what my colleagues have been telling him for the past few weeks. When a child caught my eye, or well, a mannequin acting like a child. On its knees it held another mannequin's hand while wearing an extremely undersized pink shirt. It stared into a mirror, however for some reason I felt something was off. I didn't understand it at the time. It looked like all the other mannequins. From size to attire, but it just felt different. Only then I realized it was staring at me through the reflection in the mirror. Only then did the loud humbuzz stop, and all the lights shut in the store. Jesus! Why did you turn off the lights? I shouted in pitch darkness towards the staff room. My own voice echoed back to me. After a few seconds, like a hit of adrenaline, I woke up from my fear-infused trance and scrambled to find my flashlight. I didn't even bother to unclip it from my belt. With an aggressive yank I freed it and lit up the room. Quickly scanning every wall and corner for movements, I found nothing. I found nothing. All the mannequins. Their clothes left on the floor in their place. More than 40 of them. I was alone in pitch darkness, alone in dead quiet. Each step felt heavy, encumbered. No longer blocked by the mannequins, I carefully stepped around the multiple piles of clothes left behind by them. Each step a loud echoey thud. I crept closer and closer to the staff room. At the entrance to the staff room, my exit was slightly open. Only barely enough to see the darkness spilling out of it. I was just close enough to reach for the door handle. I could almost touch the handle, my fingers almost touching the metal exterior. But I felt that feeling again. As if I'm too close to someone and need to take a few steps back to avoid a head collision. So, I reached my hand back, however the feeling wasn't coming from in front of me. I panned my flashlight slowly, to get a last good look of the shop. All the mannequins stood in the middle of the shop. Without any clothes, their plastic white skin reflected my flashlight's rays. They looked like a mass, blended together. Only their unlit numerous limbs could be distinguished. As a menstruum it stood at a distance, a pile of blended plastic awaited my next move. Stared at me with numerous heads. A sturdy pull and sprint. I was back at my cruiser. While running out, the owner was nowhere to be seen. Contacting the station the next day, we conducted a full investigation. The owner apparently saw someone wearing shop clothing running out of the store, so he sprinted after him, explaining his absence. When that happened, another burglar or kid or whatever shut the lights to play a trick on me. We couldn't catch the kids, and the mannequins were gone by the morning. All the money was left in the shop, but multiple items of clothing and of course the mannequins were stolen. Good news, however, since then there were no new calls from Maggies. The kids had enough. End of transcript.
Thanks for watching. Please comment, like, share and subscribe. The Internet Surfer on YouTube for more horror and scary stories.